Welcome to the Tradies in Business podcast with your hosts Warwick Bidwell and Nicole Cox. Divert your phone and grab a brew as Waz and Nick unpack tips, tales, secrets and stuff-ups from guests both inside and outside your trade, helping educate and inspire you to break the cycle of gut-busting and money stress and create a true trade business.
G'day. Welcome to the Tradies in Business podcast. You're listening to Waz with his podcast voice. Do you
and
like
Nick, I'm sure I've got one, but I can't hear it.
You go in and out of yours during episodes.
Do I?
Yes, and I try really hard not to laugh.
Thank you, and please do not.
You know when those times when I turn my head away from the microphone? Often it's because I'm sniggering.
Oh, that's dreadful.
like,
I'm never going to be able to do this the
Cox's
same with
podcast
you.
voice. Ah.
Isn't that good?
Yeah. Hey, we're talking about old age today.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like an attractive conversation to me.
But more specifically, we're talking about retirement planning. It's not really sounding any more exciting, is it?
I don't know. I can't wait to retire. That's pretty exciting.
But that's the problem, isn't it? We all want to retire. It's just that none of us have got much of an idea about how or when
I don't.
and whether we're going to have any money.
Well, I didn't know, but now I know a bit more.
So we thought that we would partner up with Skylight Financial Services.
Yes,
I think is the
you
name.
nailed it.
Wow.
Look at you go.
I didn't even take any notes for that. Skylight Financial Services, which is, well, I don't know how to describe this. It's been
part of.
constructed by
Correct.
BusQ.
That was well done.
Now, if you don't know who BusQ is, I don't know which rock you've been living. Oh, no, that's
please.
unfair. Because for our southern listeners,
Oh, but BusQ is Australia-wide.
well, they are,
So you're still living
but
under a rock.
they did originate in Queensland.
They did, but
and
I think we all know.
sometimes us southerners can be a little bit parochial when it comes to, things north of the border.
Well, maybe it's time that we all open our eyes and find what's right for us instead of thinking about what state we live in.
And besides,
Those are a little ranty.
we all live in Australia. So,
Australia.
you should be happy to use a company from Queensland. So we decided to do a couple of episodes around some of the big questions that we get asked in the Tradies in Business group or that we see being shared around. Now, I shiver sometimes when I see some of the well-meaning but very misguided advice given in the group. Love seeing people help each other, but it really highlighted for us, Coxie, the misinformation and misunderstanding that's out there around investment and retirement planning.
Absolutely, and they sound like really big, scary terms, but this is stuff we should be thinking about right from when we get a full-time job.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Like, there's a lot of stuff to consider, but with the right advice, it is actually pretty straightforward, and you can come up with a really good plan. And there's a lot of myths out there, and we bust some of those today with our guest, Owen Hume from Skylight Financial Services.
Well done.
Whew. All right, so I've got a big bio here for Owen, and g'day, Owen, I'm not going to read it.
Sorry,
I told him
Owen.
we would, but I'm not going to read it. But what I am going to say, Owen's a good bloke. So he grew up in central Queensland on a beef station. So he's a country boy, which we love.
We do.
He lived in Townsville, went to uni up there. Sadly, still barracks for the Cowboys.
Yeah, but it's a Queensland team. What's wrong with that?
Is Townsville still considered Queensland?
Oh, now you're getting nasty. You just
so-
made an enemy of Owen.
It's so far north, it's almost like not Queensland. Anyway, he's a Cowboys supporter. He's a dad. He's a husband, and he's just a really good bloke.
He's a top bloke.
He's pretty passionate about what he does. He loves to chat, and
It's very funny.
I will, as the technical, as the unlucky one who's been anointed as the technical guru in this podcast, I must apologise for the audio today. We had some issues with Owen's microphone cutting in and out a little bit due to the echo and the way the room was set up. But it's definitely worth a listen. So just letting you know, for anybody who has trouble with that sort of stuff when you're listening to a podcast like me,
Push through.
Yeah, push through, because he does bust a bunch of myths and pretty much lays out what you need to do if you're a trade business owner and you don't have a retirement plan in place. He pretty much lays out the steps you need to follow and the things you need to consider to make sure that you're okay when you can't work anymore. Because, as he rightly pointed out, being a tradie, it's pretty low chance that you're going to be able to work right through to your 70s like the government thinks everyone's going to do.
There's a whole nother episode in that statement alone.
Speaking of rants.
Yes.
So, have a listen. Some awesome tips in here. Owen's a good bloke, and stay tuned for our sort of follow-up episode on this one where we talk about something even more exciting, which is life insurance. But again, in all seriousness, scary number of people don't have this stuff sorted, and we really want to help you get what you deserve from your business. If you're going to bust your backside so much in your trade business, wouldn't you want to make sure that you're taken care of when you can't work anymore, either because you've chosen to retire or because something untoward happens to you? So tune in to today's ep, peeps, and we'll,
cool
I don't know, see you around like a rissole.
When your legs are straight.
All right, so we're joined by Owen Hume from Skylight. Is it Skylight Financial or just Skylight?
Skylight Financial Solutions.
Right, gee,
is
that's
what we
That's a big mouthful.
yeah.
Skylight Financial Solutions.
Yep.
Basically, Owen's joining us. Skylight's part of BusQ, or a division of BusQ, the super fund. And
Absolutely.
Owen, you're going to talk about how we can all retire in the next 12 months, aren't you? We've got everybody's attention now.
the miracle worker.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Well, mate, welcome to the show. Great to have you with us. Welcome to the show. Great to have you with us.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure,
Thanks
mate.
for having me. I'm a podcast virgin, so please be gentle. Yeah.
That's okay. We've already made you move rooms to reduce a bit of echo, mate. So thanks for playing along with the technical side of things. Mate,
No worries.
how did you come to be sitting in this chair as the retirement planning guru at Skylight?
Long story short, did economics at uni. Near the end of my degree, I decided I didn't want to be an economist and work in Canberra and do really dry stuff. I'm a people person. I know that's a cliche, but love helping people and providing solutions. So started to apply jobs within the financial services space when I finished uni. I grew up in central Queensland originally on a cattle property, went to boarding school, then went to uni in Townsville, so pretty much a country boy at heart, and got my start at one of the major institutions for years, then moved down to the southeast corner and just worked as a paraplanner for a few years as well, which is the people who put together the advice document for the advisor, and then evolved into doing financial planning after that, and worked in private practice, and then moved over to the industry funds sphere and the advice various industry funds probably about 13 years ago after working in private practice. Really sort of enjoyed dealing with particularly sort of the blue collar kind of clients, because they're probably a little bit more down to earth and more practical. So when you explain financial concepts and so forth, I normally like to talk about tanks and, your super funds, the hole in the top where you chuck money in, and your retirement pension's a tank or the tap. And so it was just a natural evolution, I suppose, where sort of I get to apply a bit of technical skill and apply the soft skills of helping people.
Yeah, cool.
So a long-winded answer. To give long-winded answers.
No, all good, mate. It's funny. Most people who come on the podcast, even if they have done a few before, one of the biggest fears for podcast guests is waffling. And most of the people on our show are pretty safe, because I reckon I'm a pro waffler. I ask some of the longest questions known to man. So, Owen, you're pretty safe, mate.
You're very safe.
No worries. I did hear you explaining the other day how you came to get a new watch, and that was like a 15-minute answer.
Thank you.
In the car, well, they haven't pressed fast forward, but yeah.
So, listeners, Nicole is going to be hosting today's episode with Owen.
But you say that, and then you find it almost impossible to pull yourself away. Now he's going to go blank.
I'm the same. Don't worry about that. company, I think.
All right, well, let's get to the guts of where we need to be today, because Warwick's going to be really difficult not say anything now. So I'm just smack bang into the middle. We just jump right into it, and let's talk about retirement planning. I'd really like to finish working, Owen. I don't want to work anymore. I don't know what I'm working towards. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know how I'm going to get there. Are these some of the questions or some of the answers you're typically given when you're speaking to particularly tradies about how they're going to get to that point in their life where they're able to retire?
Absolutely. It really comes down to a few different issues. Probably, the dollars and cents is a part of it, but the other part of it's a lifestyle decision too, because as you can imagine, as we get older, we get a bit set in our ways. So it's, do you have enough? Do you have enough money, firstly? And I help people look at that and project, okay, this is the pot of money you have from, be it superannuation, sale of your business. So we help them with succession planning and give some tips on that. Their non-super assets, their investment property. We do the numbers and say, based on you wanting to retire within 3 years and wanting this kind of lifestyle, what's it going to look like versus if you work for another couple of years, what does it look like? Or if you tighten the belt and reduce, instead of a champagne lifestyle and a beer budget, what does that look like? So that's the dollars and cents that we really help people with. But a lot of it's those getting to know your client rules and just that conversation about what does retirement look like for you? Because when someone retires, they become like their parents who have retired overnight. And I always say, when you retire, you look in the mirror, you're not an elderly person who goes to the RSL once a week and that's it. You're only a day older. So, you probably have the same amount of hair or lack of hair. And fishing, some people, if you like fishing 2 days a week, you probably do it 2 days a week. People have a vision that they're going to go play golf 5 days a week, and the feedback you get from them is, I'm just playing with other retirees and all they talk about is time and it's boring. The other aspect is getting, particularly the ones who are coupled, getting them in, and that's sometimes the first time they've shared a conversation with a third party or even between themselves of what they want to do when they retire. Like, I'll go, okay, so you're currently living on this much a year, 80 grand or whatever it is when you look at their take-home pay and what they say to the dollars and cents. That might be 60 grand a year or 70 grand. You've done a budget and you think you live on 40, what's going to change? And one of them will go, oh, we're doing a lot of travel, but that's going to finish in retirement. And then the other spouse goes, no, we're still going to travel. So, or no, I don't want to live here. I want to move to Bribie Island. And it's surprising how often that's the first time they're having that conversation. So sometimes I almost feel like I'm a default relationship counsellor, particularly with couples. The other thing is retirement is, do you have enough money? And we help them with that. But have you had enough of work? What are you going to do if you're not working? And some spouses, particularly if the guy's just been on the tools his whole life, and the wife or the partner's been helping him with and the business or raising the kids or doing other things and doing other jobs. He's home 24/7 and he's saying, why don't we go grocery shopping on a Wednesday? Tuesday's better to do it. Or why do you do this? And she's just like, you haven't whinged about this in 5 years. So a lot of people go back and if they've sold their business, they're a tradie, they end up going and working for their brother or whatever 3 days a week because
got to get out of the house.
Maybe stand them all the time, yeah. And it's like, say, do you have enough? And have you had enough of work? Has work had enough of you if you're an employee or running your own business? And will your if you've got a better half, will they can they stand to see the side of you? Or can you stand to see the side of them? So
yeah.
And I'm pretty. I like to have those conversations with them quite early before totally getting into the dollars and cents because, as you know, and I know your previous background was as a planner too, money is just fuel to fund your lifestyle. And some people can quite comfortably live on 40 grand a year in retirement. And some people struggle to live on 80 grand a year in retirement. And so it's really delving into those lifestyle decisions first because I go, what does the average person need to retire? And I went, well, the average is just everyone jammed in together and no one is average, you know. So So they're the kind of conversations that you like to have with people. It's the same as, I suppose, when you're giving them growing their business. Why do they want to grow their business? To make more money. And, the business coaching you do is, but what does that look like? Oh, because I want to automate it so I can spend more time with my kids or my elderly parents, or ski in Queenstown 3 weeks a year. So a lot of it is those without being fairly about what does that look like for you? What is the money for? And some people have their capital to go down in retirement, so they want enough capital that they're only, most of the time, with an average market return, they're maintaining their base. So their obsession is leaving as much to the kids as possible. My attitude is, but the kids are going to get a house anyway that they can flog within 2 years without paying capital gains tax. So why is that an issue? Whereas other people go, look, my goal is to my last dollar of the day before I end up in a pine box. So it's a surprising, you can have two people, they're fact find for whatever bit of a term, like their financials are identical or very similar, their business is valued very similar, but they've got totally different, what does retirement look like for them?
Yep.
I think when we're talking retirement, we're thinking about being really old, Owen. I'm 43. Let's put it out there.
You're pretty old.
Yeah, thank you. And I think, retirement.
43?
Yep. Say something nice now. That'd be lovely.
I thought you'd be 33. I'm
well done.
I'm 43 myself, actually. Yeah. So
it's a good time
I
of
thought
life.
I'd have less hair by now, so I'm happy. Yeah, it's a great time.
I thought my hair would be darker, but anyway, that didn't work out either.
It doesn't. But I think it's sort of, maybe at 40 I started thinking, one of these days, not too far away, maybe 15, 20 years, I don't think I want to work anymore. But I haven't really thought about it before now. It was just something old people did. Whereas I think, and you don't think about planning for retirement. So I guess the point I'm trying to get to is, when should we start thinking about planning for retirement?
Probably, without being too hokum about it, when you get your first full-time job. It goes by really quickly. Like, okay, so we're all early, mid-40s. I'll be generous there, perhaps, particularly on myself. I don't, in my head, I still think I'm 21 years old.
That's right.
Until I hang out with 21-year-olds, obviously. But life goes by really quick, and you think how the last 20 years have gone by, and another 17 years' time, I'll be 60 as well. So the earlier the better. And basic is obviously making sure you don't have 5 or 6 superannuation funds floating around the place. I remember a colleague, Anne Kemp, about 12 months ago, she admitted that when she first met her husband, he was in that situation. He was a tradie with about 5 or 6 different funds. So making sure that you'd actually know what your net worth is first, what your starting point is, and what you don't have to have. I've got to be careful because I said this. I used to give advice to a lot of engineers, and I recently made a joke about engineers in a seminar, thinking it was a room full of tradies, and there was 2 engineers in the room, and with their wife nodded their head, and they knew exactly what I was talking about. So an engineer will basically plan their retirement early on and say, "Yep, I've only got items listed, and I've got that index with inflation of what I'll spend in retirement." And I'm like, yeah, that's not life. Life isn't in a linear fashion. Things change. But so I suppose what I look at is big picture. What was their parents' retirement like? Is that something they want to do? And most of them go, "Oh hell no, Dad had retirement forced on him because of health," or I don't know, them stories you've shared on as well about work their guts out for nothing. So it's good to plan for it earlier rather than later. And that doesn't mean you work out exactly how much you'll think you'll need to live on a retirement, but it's like going, let's make sure the superannuation's consolidated as best as possible. Let's make sure I'm in an appropriate super fund, be it BusQ or whoever else, because at Skylight, we're built by BusQ, but we take a product agnostic view because as a financial planner, I have a higher duty of care than just one product. So we probably naturally have a bias towards predominantly industry funds because the numbers do stack up, but there is some good retail funds out there as well. But also make sure that they're balancing living for now versus living for later as well. Some people live for later their whole life, and they live very miserly or frugally, and they struggle to enjoy retirement because they've been miserly their whole life. They're at one extreme, and you're like shaking them, going, "You're going to die one day. Like, enjoy it." Other people totally live for now and never think of the future, and it's about getting that balance right. And they're the conversations I have with people. And there is a myth currently still of the $1 million retirement that's been flogged by planners for a long time. So they, go, "This is the problem, but have I got the solution for you?" And all the research we've done for people now, particularly because, a lot of people retiring, about 7 out of 10 of them will still get some level of Centrelink support during their life, when they retire, during their retirement life. It's not something, if you can get it, like, you don't spend all your money to get it, but if you're going to get it anyway, it's something to factor in. People don't need $1 million to retire at the moment. Our generation will need more because there'll probably be less Centrelink support. But if you've got someone in late 50s, in their 60s now, the $1 million retirement is a myth. If you've got $1 million, great, either better, because it buys you a better level of retirement and dignity and less worries, in theory, although more money, more problems for a lot of people. But it's about getting that balance right. So, sorry, that was a really long-winded answer. Probably from day one is a good way to have it. And that doesn't mean, firstly, make sure what your super fund is. Make sure you've got an appropriate super fund. Make sure you've got the correct investment mix. So the younger you are, traditionally, generally speaking, so obviously I'm required to say everything I'm talking about today is high level and general advice and doesn't take into account your circumstances. But generally speaking, the younger you are, a more aggressive investment option for your superannuation is appropriate, because you can write out the good, the bad, and the ugly, and review that over time. And then don't look at the markets every day with your superannuation. If you're 43 years old or 33 years old or 23 years old, you are going to have some really bad years with markets, but you're going to have some fantastic years, and your average return will be higher if you take a more aggressive stance over the long term. So that's the other point, is getting a handle of your cash flow. That doesn't just suit you for retirement, but that suits you for now as well, because if most people don't have differences with tradies and any self-employed people when they're starting their business, but over time, most people normally don't have too much of an income problem. Once they're established, they have an expenditure problem. So getting an idea of where your leakage of your expenditures are, because when you retire, your lifestyle for that honeymoon phase of retirement, your first 5 or 7 years, isn't radically different. Over time, you spend less money and so forth. So, but if the more you can understand your cash flow now, the better, because that gives you an indication of what it might look like, particularly during the retirement. And that sort of does a bit of homework for us too. Then we can do projections and modelling and do all the financial geek stuff. But it's all about you, about what retirement looks like for you.
On retirement for me, or I'm just going to put it out there and say it's for a friend.
Asking for a friend.
I'm going to ask for a friend, or the thousands of friends that we talk to very frequently who are mid-40s and they've been tradies all their life and they've got no super. Are they ever going to be able to retire?
Probably, because superannuation isn't the only solution to retirement. And I understand a lot of people are running their business, they see their business as their superannuation or nest egg, for want of a better term. The important thing they need to do is understand if their business is actually a sellable asset, like if their goodwill, not just their plant and stuff that depreciates over time, or their factory if they own it, which will go up, but their goodwill of their business, their revenue, is that something they have that they'll be able to find a buyer for that, for a multiple of that income. So that's important. Early on, superannuation isn't as important for them because they're sinking everything into their business. But if they're still doing that in 10 years' time of having the business, you'd question, what are they working in their business for when they could be working for someone else and getting 9.5% of their gross paid into super?
Yeah.
They're the kind of tough conversations we have with people. sometimes just project going, if you stay on this path, this is what it's going to look like. And it's having those tough conversations, like someone going to the doctor in their early mid-40s saying, mate, you're quite festively plump, for want of a better term. You've got high blood pressure, your dad had a heart attack, your mother's had this. If you keep going on this path, that's going to. Money's no different. And it's about having those tough conversations early. So with correct guidance and advice and them meeting halfway and taking some decisions, most people can retire and they don't need $1 million, but some people overvalue how much they think their business is worth. So that's why we'll work with their accountant and so forth to do that. And my colleague Antonio will also talk about having like a life raft for your business, which is the insurance, it's the key person insurance, the buy-sell agreements. So if the proverbial does hit the fan, that they're not trying to flog a business at a garage sale price.
Yeah.
So we like to. So we always start with their baseline first. It's a bit like, I suppose, again, I did stalk you a little bit online. You do CrossFit. It's not about you can bench now or how many burpees you can do now, but like as in compared to everyone else. But what's your starting point? What can you do today? What would you like to get to? And then just improving every year and not comparing yourself with other people. So that's the biggest problem with societies. People, what's my super balance look like to the average person? And I go, well,
it doesn't matter.
That's not different. Yeah, comparison's a killer of all joy.
Yep.
So to answer your question, Nicole, it's basically it's about at them early and having those tough conversations, and sometimes they might need to go away and reflect, and then 6 months later they'll go, I've taken some of those things on board. It's like any other goal you work for. There's no such thing as perfection. It's what are the top 3 things that person can do, put them in a better position, rather than going, I need to do these 30 things because the Barefoot Investor said it was a good idea. And by the way, that's a damn good point, and that's a good starting point for a lot of people. So at all, I actually gave that to my missus because it's hard to explain to your own spouse what you do and for them to listen to you regardless of what they do. And then she circled back going, oh, this cash flow thing and super. And I went, yeah, I talk to people about that every day, but you need to get that from a third.
I bet you love Scott Pape, mate.
And, yeah. Oh, look, a lot of his stuff's general, pretty sound advice. Like, I like the fact that he doesn't flog a product most of the time, and it's fairly, it's cash flow driven too. Like, he's not saying, oh, you should go buy Bitcoin or ostrich farms or whatever. It's like, no, you look at where you are first, and you keep it simple. And you got to do that with tradies. And it's not that the tradies are simple. Tradies are smart people. I don't have the skill set to do all the stuff they do, and they wear a lot of liability. Being a carpenter, being an electrician, but they just need it simple because they work their guts out every day. They go home. They just need something that's implementable.
Yeah.
And the problem with is they try to make it all too hard. So they go, oh, mate, I'll just hand it all over to you. And whereas I like to walk with people on that because, I could drop dead, I could retire, I could do something else. They need to, I like to self-educate some.
Yeah. And not to take away from your expertise or anything, Owen, but retirement planning is not as complicated as it's made out to be, and you've already made that point. Well, it doesn't have to be as complicated as it's made out to be.
It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be.
And in actual fact, I think some of the best...
There's a lot of artificial.
Yeah, I think some of the best retirement plans are fairly straightforward. For most of us, most of our listeners are small to medium business owners. They work hard in their business a lot of the time. And I want to ask you a question about some of the big maybe misconceptions or mistakes that people make in planning for retirement. But it's as simple as we sort of tip the hat to Scott, the Barefoot Investor, is keep the expenditure under control, keep the cash flow healthy, skim a bit off the top and stick it somewhere sensible, and that's where, you know, a good planner comes into play. Do that, rinse, repeat for long enough, and you'll have a friggin' fund that you can actually live off.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so what I like to do is when I conversation with someone about that and explain, and we do this at the seminars as well, we'll draw like a funnel and say, okay, out of that, the bottom line of the funnel, your bank account, you need to live. So some of that might be your rental income, some of that might be, once you get to age pension age, some age pension, because the age pension asset test, despite what you read in the media, is still somewhat generous. Again, it's not something we'd necessarily aim for, but if you've got 60s now, you'd be surprised, even if they don't jag it when they retire, they might jag it 5 years down the track. Their superannuation, we just go, these are all the things that will feed into the funnel to get you what you need to achieve. And so we just work back from there. And yeah, you got to keep it simple, because there is a lot of artificial demand there, and a lot of that is about trying to make it that complicated that to sell a massive fee or to flog them a product that they mightn't necessarily need. Yeah, so yeah, look, I totally agree. It's just that I find it becomes complex just because there's a lot of myths out there, and one of the myths is the $1 million retirement. The other myth is that the rule book for superannuation, the rule book for tax, and the rule book for Centrelink are all the same, and they're all different rule books. There's a little bit of overlap. It's like the difference between rugby league and rugby union. There's overlap, but they're two different rule books. So we just like to demystify a lot of that stuff. Mm-hmm. People think superannuation is the government's money they get their stickies on if they end up in the hole. It's not. It's that person's asset just held within a tax structure. So it's just we spend a lot of time demystifying a lot of that stuff first. And I suppose that's the beauty of Scott Pape's book as well, that he does keep it simple and demystify it. And that's why, I gave it to my spouse to read, to go, look, me having a 5-minute conversation on the couch on a Friday night during the NRL ad break while I'm watching the Cowboys having probably isn't the best. If you can read this, honey, and then we can have a chat about anything you want me to confirm. So, yeah. So it's keeping it simple to a large extent.
The funny thing in my house, because my wife read Barefoot Investor, and my wife and I got together a lot of years after I left financial planning, and so she knew that I'd been a planner and I had my own firm, but I don't think that really, made sense to her, and so she was encouraging me strongly to read the Barefoot Investor. I'm like, I kind of know everything that's in that book, honey. If we just do this, we'll be fine. And whether it's Scott's book or anybody else's, and I would suggest that it's actually both spouses, if that's the scenario, going and speaking to someone like you, Owen, so that both people are on the same page with the same strategy and the same ideas. And that's really, that's been great in my house, because I was like, all right, I'll read the bloody book. And I read the book and I went, yeah, okay, there's a couple good ideas in here, but we're on the same page now. I mean, I knew the stuff, but, I knew what I knew, and my wife knew what she knew from the book, and it just actually created some common understanding about how we're going to manage our cash flow and how we're going to save for retirement.
Absolutely. So that book is a tool to get people on the same page. I see myself as, I shouldn't call myself a tool, as a way to be on the same page as well.
Yeah.
To, again, it's not just about the dollars and cents, but it's a lot of at first deployment, I'm a big chatter, but most of the conversation is I try to get them to do the majority of the talking first, and I just ask questions about, there's the money, but what is the money for? What does retirement look like for you? Where do you want to live? How many grandkids? All of that stuff first, because that's your objectives, and then you move backwards from there and then say, out of all those objectives, what are your priorities? And the thing is, for a lot of people, it doesn't have to be that complicated. It's just that there's a lot of white noise out there, so they feel it has to be. I suppose that's why BusQ itself years ago brought financial advice in-house, because there was a lot of members getting, for want of a better term, ripped off by other planners that didn't have their best interests at heart. and Bus being an industry fund and having that partial care for its members, and being a small to medium-sized fund, so knowing their members reasonably intimately, did that, and then they built Skylight, and I've been with the organisation for 3 years to show people that, we give it advice can be as narrow as broad as you like, and you don't have to be a BusQ member. I've got clients that have no association with BusQ at all, but they've been referred by their friends and family, and I've given them retirement advice. They might not have never actually become BusQ members at all, but because we're agnostic and fee for service, we've added value to the situation. And because we're here to cover our costs rather than make a massive return on capital, we typically charge significantly less than what other planners charge. And because we're agnostic and fee for service, we don't go, you should be in this fund or this fund or this fund. So because there's a lot of good funds out there, as there is a lot of good investments, a lot of good insurers and so forth. So it's just, I would agree. I wouldn't take any umbrage with that at all. It does not have to be that complicated. But a lot of what we do is unpackage a lot of that stuff first, because there's just the problem is we have in society so much information, but not much knowledge or wisdom. I think we've lost that a little bit, so much white noise.
So I wanted to ask Owen about some of the things that stop people from actually taking care of their retirement planning, whatever stage of life they're in. You've mentioned the $1 million myth. What are some of the other things that you see that really get in the way of people seeking advice from someone like you?
It's a bit like, I suppose, very similar to what you do. I like the analogy of, there's the below the line stuff, which is business as usual, getting the kids to school, the business, invoicing those people, getting that job done, as if you're a painter or doing the wiring if you're an electrician, or laying the foundation if you're a concreter. That business as usual stuff that we do, human doings rather than human beings, I suppose. And there's the above the line stuff like taking up CrossFit or planning for that holiday, or just stepping out of your comfort zone and going, what am I living for? What do I really want to do? So to be honest, I think a lot of it, and some people say, and I think that's a little bit unfair because people are quite busy these days, both spouses working, kids doing a lot more sport and a lot more stuff than, when I was a kid and that kind of stuff. That people just, and they never see themselves as an old person. In their 20s, they see a 40-year-old as old. Someone's 40, they see a 60-year-old. So they don't see themselves in that situation. So I think a lot of it is people just focus on business as usual. And doctors say they see the same with health. You probably see the same when you're giving business advice as well. They're hamsters on the wheel, and they need to give themselves permission to step away, take a day off and go, we're going to go see a financial planner. I'm going to go see the doctor for that health check. State check because I've got a family history of it and I've hit 50. All of those things, and they're no different. They're the same. And that the other thing I see is embarrassment. Some people are embarrassed about their finances. People in intimate conversation talking about your money because there's a lot of maybe shame or just uncomfortableness in talking about your assets, what you earn, where you're at, the decisions you made that might not have been. There's a lot of embarrassment about that. Like a lot of people may be more likely to, probably not a lot of blokes, but a lot of ladies, I suppose, are more likely to go to a doctor about things than talk about their money. Guys just don't talk about or share that much at all in society. So I think there's a reluctance, and they just sort of don't see that as them. I'll do that next year, I'll do that next year. I'm only 27, I'm only 37, I'm only 43. It's just a reluctance. And they also, there's another thing, they go, I don't need to go get advice because I don't have much money to start with. And but you got to start somewhere.
Yep.
A long-winded explanation, but to me it's about they just focus on the day-to-day activities rather than planning for the future, be it their health, their money, their other goals and aspirations they've got, and a lot of it's just embarrassment. And a lot of people, I don't have much money, I think I'm wasting your time. I'm like, no, what you have is a lot of money to you that's important to you, be it 50,000 in super, 10,000 in super, or $1 million in super. Like that's important to you, and you've built it yourself. So yeah, a lot of people, it's just we all get in our own way. I know I do with a lot of others.
Yeah.
And Warwick's throwing back to me now. He's being really nasty today. He's not talking at all. He's letting you do all the talking today, Owen.
Yeah, this is great.
Yeah.
We love guests that are happy to have a chat.
Anyone who thinks this podcast who knows me would say that's just anyway. So that's all good.
I'm interested. So if I think about the tradies that I have in my life, most of them are frightened, as we just spoke about. They have a fear about going to a financial planner because they don't understand what actually happens when they come to see you. So can you take us through what it is that you do? I'm coming to see you for the first time. What are we going to do?
Perfect. To explain that, it's effectively, first appointment is we just get to know their situation, and they just get to know me to see if they're comfortable, if I'm going to be a good fit for them as well, if they're comfortable talking to me about, their financial situation, which is quite personal and intimate. We talk about services and so forth. Well, we don't really have products, so to speak, but our services, how we can help. But I like to really focus on where they're at first and what they'd like to achieve. And even if they've only got a really charcoal drawing of, I think I might like to do this, we just have a conversation about that first. I could talk about, we don't charge anything for initial consultation because we don't think that is fair, because they might not think I'm a good fit, or they mightn't feel that they're at the stage where they need it. They just might want some things demystified. So we sit down, we have a conversation, we get to know the situation. I get them to do most of the talking early on. I ask a lot of questions. Normally, if they're a couple, some of them are quite interesting conversations because often they're on the same page in largely what they want to do, often, sometimes not, but it's strategies to achieve that, what path to take. So we do all of that. After the initial consultation, near the end, I'll go, look, these are the kind of things that I can do for you. So we look at, after doing their goals and objectives, we scope, these are the areas I believe I can add value on, and broadly how. Then if they're comfortable engaging with my services, we would get them to sign a fee declaration. And if they're not ready for that, that's okay. But we do things in quite an inoffensive way, and we are quite competitive what we charge compared to like your hyper-commercially based organisations. Most people take that offer up, and if they don't, that's okay, because they might have some homework to go away and think about more what they want to achieve. So I'll give them some homework. Then I'll do, once I've done the financial statement of advice, is what it's obligated to be called now legally, that'll go to them. They'll read that, and then I'll get them back in to present that face-to-face as well. But I like for them to read it first, have a week or two to read it. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that they have the meeting, they're happy with everything, and then I do the plan. Often, while I'm in the trenches, so to speak, doing the plan for them, I sort of flag with them that I might ring you a few times, because some things are only apparent as you're working on it, because everyone's situation is a little bit unique, or I'll go, oh, maybe I should have asked a question about that. And so I like to do it a bit thoroughly, maybe slower than some people, but I sort of think it has to be tailored to them. And as you say, it doesn't have to be rocket science, but it has to just be what is in their best interest. So first appointment, you just have and largely I get to know them to see how I can help. And there's some people that I've had the appointment with them and I went, look, I think largely you're doing pretty much everything right, and you're not ready yet to probably need that. But once you've done A, B, and C, come back and see me. So some people might come and see me and go, we've read barefoot, or we've done this, or we've done that, and we've got a whole lot of debt, and we're just smashing it at the moment, and we've got the income, but we got this credit card and this personal loan, and we're looking at maybe investing money and doing stuff. And I'll go, you know what? you're probably right just to smash that debt first. Dirty credit card or a 14% personal loan. I don't know why they're still 14% when your home loan you get for 3.5%, but all of those things. And I'll say, look, for me to do anything else, I'd be flogging something you don't need. Once you're on that, why don't you touch base with me in 6 months? And then we can look at these other strategies. And that way they're going, oh, okay. And sometimes you just need validation if they're on the right track.
Yes.
But some value I can offer to most people. And as I said, it doesn't have to be. So we can do advice very simple on am I in the correct investment option for my super or correct combination to the full-blown plan. And one of the other aspects of planning that we myself and my colleague Hugh Keenan here, what we call accredited aged care practitioners as well, in terms of aged care advice and how to structure everything for aged care and demystifying aged care. It's unfortunately there'll be a tsunami of baby boomers going through that system in the next 20 years, and we're finding the baby boomers are coming to us about their parents and their generation 20 years seeking advice about our parents. And so a lot of that is first conversation they're having with someone about this is with their siblings or their spouse in a doctor's car park and going, mum's had dementia, the doctor says she can't return home, finding an aged care facility, how do we fund this, what the hell's the RAD, what's the DAP, what's the fees, how do we get all the money together, and that's the kind of stuff we help people with too. So the advice can be as complex as that, or should I consolidate my super funds and what investment option should I be in? Or what should I do? Should I borrow more money on the credit card or borrow more money in my super? Well, generally, if someone's got a big dirty credit card debt, it's a no-brainer to knock that on the head because, you know, they charge the same as your Tony Sopranos in terms of interest rates. So,
so true. So true. So I'm interested to know, should we have an ongoing relationship with you, Owen? Is it once we've come and we've seen a financial planner, it's an ongoing relationship, isn't it?
It is. So we believe that every 12 months or so, depending on your situation, is a good time to swing back, or if something's major has happened in your circumstances. So if you've got someone, they might need to see us every 12 months. Depends on their situation. If you've got someone where we've just set them up for, say, the First Home Super Saver scheme where people can save money within their super. It's one of the rare things a person can use their super for to get it before their retirement, so they can set up their super under certain circumstances to accumulate for a deposit for their first home. That's the kind of stuff that we'd want to see them when we got them on the path, maybe have a conversation 12 months' time to see how that's going for them, cash flow-wise, and then see them when they've got an adequate deposit to buy a home. Other people, like the retirement advice, they might need a review every 18 months or every 2 years, or when the legislation changes. But it's on a sort of basis. But often I like to, even if it's a 20-minute conversation with someone on the phone every 12 months, to getting someone in and having an hour and a half appointment, depending on their situation. But yeah, that ongoing relationship really helps, because the thing is, the government can't help themselves. They do change the rules, not just on super. Everyone picks on super, but on tax, on family trust structures, if they're running a business, structures or corporate tax rates, or all of those different things. And they need just that touchstone. So sometimes that's a quick review. Sometimes that's a more in-depth review. They might have won lotto. They might have separated with their spouse because they weren't on the same page with their retirement plans and what their retirement's going to look like, and it's not with their partner. They're all those kind of things. Yeah, so an ongoing relationship makes sense. It's not something we force down people's throat at Skylight, because we try to differentiate ourselves with the market, and we don't put people on a ongoing review fee platform where you sign in blood and that's it, because we have a huge issue with the Royal Commission, not with the Royal Commission, but what the Royal Commission uncovered about fees for no service. So we don't believe in charging people until we're actually going to offer them value. So it's a user pay system.
I think it's an important point of distinction, actually. I guess we've all heard the horror stories, but to know that you're paying for what you get is a really important distinction, especially for tradies. We all know the value of how hard we work, and we want to work with people that are prepared to work hard with us and charge us appropriately.
Absolutely. So we work on it's a fixed fee based on an hourly rate. So it's quite similar to the way a tradie would. I try to put it in when I got my bathroom retiled a couple of years ago. It was more complicated than I thought because you had to bring in other people to do the shower door and all this stuff. Just how ignorant I am about this stuff. So you're not just dealing with a tradie, but doing the tile of it. Effectively, the way I looked at it was they said, this is what materials will cost roughly. This is how long it'll cost. This will be this. And if they went over in time to do the tiles, they're not going to charge me another $500 or $1,000 or $2,000. And if they get it done quicker and do a good job and the waterproofing's good, they're still going to charge me that. It's based on how long they think it'll last, based on their business intelligence, their previous experience and so forth. And we work the same as an advisor. So after I get to know someone's situation, reflect on this advice for the scope that you're after, and I believe I can add value on, the fee will be X, Y, Z. So, and if for some reason I might have misquoted that occasionally or whatever, it's on me. So, whereas when you have someone who either takes a trailing commission, their obligation is to do it as quick as possible because they're going to get a drink regardless, and not to keep servicing them because they're going to get a drink regardless if they service them or not. And when you're doing it on an hourly rate, they're not bagging lawyers or anything because some lawyers do fixed well. We use a couple of estate planning solicitors and they do it on a fixed fee basis as well, which I love. So, but when you do it on an hourly rate, sometimes there is an incentive I can see, particularly with accounting. Some accountants, majority are pretty good. They can tend to drag it out.
Yeah.
Almost like on a building site, I go slow water. So that's why we like that fixed fee as well. So we review fees from time to time based on our experience on this actually takes this long or blah, blah, blah. But people aren't obligated until they get to know the person and they sign that declaration. And if that's something they want to have a think about first, no skin off my teeth as well. And I find that approach works well because you're not forcing something down their throat. Majority of clients that I deal with are still either bus queue members or if they're not, they're still in the building and construction industries. So, and they like that fixed approach because, as I said, that's the way they probably do the tiling in my bathroom, or that's the way they do a kitchen refit out, or, both people are on the same page and they're knowing what they're getting.
You really are throwing this to me today, Warwick. He keeps looking. We get to a natural pause in the conversation. He looks at me like, okay, she'll do it.
And Coxie's used to me jumping in as soon as you draw breath. I'm in there with another question. So
it's the way it normally goes, but not today. He's really
I just wanted to ask the 1,000 tradies question.
Please.
Ask away, Was.
Yeah.
I think we're ready.
Well, it's. I thought we might put a bow on it, Owen, and get to the pointy end of the whole gig. And part of that is me asking my favourite question, which is, if you had 1,000 tradies in a room, it'd be pretty hot and sweaty, but if you had 1,000 tradies in a room, what's one piece of advice or word of wisdom or something you would like to leave them with?
Great question. Ask what the money's for. What are they working for? Are they working just because that's what their dad did and that's what they've always done themselves and that's all they know? Or what is their end game for slaving their guts out? And seek advice to see if they're achieving that, and also are they protecting that? And Tony will talk about insurances more, but do they have enough cash reserve? Do they have their business valued? Just what is the money for? Like, why are they? It'd be no different than someone who's worked as in a pay-as-you-go job for 20 years. What is the money for? Like, what is your motivation for looking at it every day? Yeah, you enjoy it, but what is your end game? Because none of us get out of this alive, and it's worthwhile looking at what is it you want to achieve. Because as you know, you blink your eye and all of a sudden you're 10 years older. And unfortunately, it's a probably even more critical conversation to have with tradies because, governments say, oh, people can work until they're 70 now. Well, have they ever met someone who's done work their whole life? Like I can, but people have done physical work their whole life, particularly people in the building and construction industry, their bodies are had it by a certain age. And so they have to think, should I be getting out and being less and running your own business and probably seeking advice from someone like yourself helps as well. So shameless plug there, but effectively, what is it for? What is the money for? Like, what is their end game? And so that advice is to reflect on that, and everything else follows from that. It doesn't matter if it's my super with this fund or this fund, or I'm in balanced growth or what. They're details, and as I said, it's not rocket science, but what is it for?
Yep. Great, mate.
Yeah.
Love it.
It's not a technical game. It's more, it's a head game. Like, like you don't want to get to the end of your working life and go, I hated that, my body's busted, and I haven't got a brass to rub together.
It's unfortunate.
Seems a bit pointless. Well, mate, we will make sure all the links are in the show notes to Skylight and BusQ, of course.
Yep.
And is there any important links that people need to know about, or somewhere they should go and visit to find out more?
Yeah, look, our website is skylight.com.au, and it's got all the details of what the services that we can provide to people in the building and construction industry and also the wider population.
Great.
It's also got My Ugly Mug, mugs for all the other different planners who work within our organisation, and a bit about us and our backgrounds. And there's a lot of general tools and so forth. So there's a lot of information there. It talks about when our upcoming seminars are as well. And I suppose the main thing is that's a starting point. And if they want an appointment, feel free to give us a call. The first appointment is always obligation free, and it's just a getting to know appointment. And we're all act in quite a sort of friendly manner. So come in, have a chat, see what we can add value in your situation, because it only costs you time to come in first. So again, that website, skylight.com.au, and they can book an appointment through the website as well.
Awesome.
Fantastic. Thank you, Owen.
Mate, thanks for being on the podcast. I hope we were gentle enough for you to pop your podcasting cherry, mate.
It was. I enjoyed it. It was. It was nowhere near as intimidating as I thought it would be. So, yeah.
That's probably because Coxie asked all the questions. All right, mate. Well, thanks again for your time.
Thanks, Owen.
You've been listening to the Tradies in Business podcast with Warwick Bidwell and Nicole Cox. Find out more about today's guest, tools for your trade business, and other cool stuff at tradiesinbusiness.com.au.